Good morning, Sandy.
Good morning, Ladianne.
How are you?
I'm good. Happy summer solstice.
Yeah, thank you. Somebody asked me yesterday when they came in the shop if yesterday was summer solstice, and embarrassingly, I thought it was. I'll be honest with you, I'm back at the point that I'm not really even sure what day it is. So, you know,
Well, it's the Curious to Use show, so it must be Saturday.
uh, today I know, and today is my wedding anniversary. So,
Ah,
yeah.
happy anniversary.
Thank
Sherry,
you.
happy anniversary
Thank
to
you.
you
Thank
too.
you. So, good morning to your sister and Marley and Ed and Joe. Good
Good
morning,
morning.
everybody. So glad that you're here. Every time I do that, I feel like we're doing the Mickey Mouse Club.
It is the Mickey Mouse Club, but that's what's cool about it.
If anybody doesn't know what that is, Google it, children. Google it. Ah, thanks, Marley. I appreciate it. So, Sandy and I are just going to have a chat today about several things. But before we get to that, Sandy, what do you have on your needles? You got anything fun going on there?
I'm working on a project for Amano yarns for spring next year that
Ah,
is incredibly fine lace weight alpaca, cashmere, and silk, and it's a big shawl. So it's
wow.
4,000 miles of knitting, and it feels like it's never going to be
Oh my
finished.
gosh. That is going to be stunning, I bet. Oh my gosh.
It'll be beautiful. I'm going to be so over it by the time it's done.
Totally understand that. Totally understand that. I can't wait to see how they style that. I'm excited.
It should be styled in such a way that it shows how transparent it is,
Hmm.
but that's not within my control, so I just let go of that.
I
Once I've produced the piece, I send it off and it's theirs.
I completely get it. So your sister said in response to the Mickey Mouse Club, she said
Yes.
romper room, and then Joe said, "Do we get to pick which Mouseketeer we can be?" Yeah,
Yes,
you
Joe,
can't
you
all
may
be
pick.
Annette. You're not all allowed to be Annette. Um, I don't even remember any of those other people, but yeah, you.
The only other one I remember is Cubby, and I
Oh,
get the feeling in the back of my memory that maybe he was sort of a dork, so I don't think I want to pick that one.
oh, poor Cubby. Oh, yeah, I'm gonna have to look all that up. Which leads me to I'm remembering that perhaps Annette wore um, some knit sweaters. I feel like
Aren't you thinking of Annette post Mouseketeers when she was like a beach blanket kind of Annette Funicello person?
maybe a little more va va voom at that point.
The sweaters were rather snug, yes.
I think I remember that. Yes. Um, Before we get to that, I will tell you guys because my on the needles lately are multi week on the needles. So Joe said Annette was her idol. Totally understand, Joe. My on the needles this week is still the brown sweater. It's still the brown sweater. The sleeves are done. I'm on the body. So yes,
Take some time.
well, I would like to tell you it's because I'm supporting slow fashion, but it's really that I just have a lot going on. So, yeah, I'll tell you it's slow fashion, but whatever. And I'm wearing an off the needles here, off of Sandy's needles.
That is off my needles.
I love this. So, I do have a slide at the end to remind them of something coming up related to this. But
Yes.
tell everybody about this wrap, about this shawl.
So that shawl is called Mezzaluna, which is Italian for half moon, which if Ladianne would take it off, you would see the half moon shape. It's weird because I'm not seeing you in my Skype window moving.
Let me.
So I'm seeing the delay on Facebook on
How
my
about now?
computer.
Do you see me now?
No,
Okay.
but
Do
that's
you see me
okay.
now?
You're frozen on the Skype
Oh,
window. It's very odd.
okay.
So I'm seeing you responding to what I say about 20 seconds later in the Facebook thing, which
Okay.
there you are. Oh, there you are.
Okay.
Yay.
Hi,
Oh,
Sandy.
so,
Okay.
so much better. I no longer have to do the mental gymnastics. So Mezzaluna, Italian for half moon. This came from an idea I had for how to create this shape in a way that was really graceful. And then I had to try it out because I had to see if I could get the numbers right and get the shape to work. And it did. And that just always makes me so happy when things turn out the way I want them to.
Love it. I'm
Um,
wearing it very well at the moment, but I absolutely love it. It is truly wearable, you guys. I'm having a fashion fumble. That's all.
well, because the top edge isn't actually straight, there's a curve to the top edge.
Yeah.
So it doesn't want to fall off of you.
Let me do it this way. Ooh,
Oh, that's lovely.
super
It looks so
sexy.
jaunty off to the side.
I feel rather jaunty. Thank you. Yeah, I love this. It's beautiful.
It's great for hand-dyed yarns. This is, of course, made in hand-dyed Diva Sport, which
Yay!
Ladianne and Sherry dye so beautifully.
Thank you.
And it's got those broad bands of stockinette stitch so that if you're somebody who collects hand dyes that are really speckly or a little more varied, those bands of stockinette stitch show off that speckly yarn really well. And then the stripes and the mosaic work in the border add texture and a color pop, and it's just a really fun piece to work.
It's beautiful. It's
Thank you.
pretty. And the this is the first piece that we've had knit in our sport weight, you guys. And as I've mentioned before, this yarn is really special to us because this is all American wool. It's a mix of merino and rambouillet, which rambouillet is just an ancestor of merino.
Right.
Just to put it in, so it's basically all merino. It's grandpa merino and then baby merino. And then it is milled in North Carolina. So we're very proud of this yarn because it supports our domestic industry, which we love.
I found the yarn really delightful to work with. And what I also loved about it is because it's a shawl, I wanted it to have some drape and some flow.
Mm-hmm.
So I worked it on a larger needle than I might have if I were doing a sweater out of the sport weight yarn. If I were doing a sweater out of this yarn, I'd have probably used a size 4 needle.
Okay.
For the shawl, I used a size 6. So I went up actually 2 needle sizes
Wow.
to get some drape to it.
Okay.
And what's nice is that the yarn, particularly after it's been blocked, it fluffs up enough that there's nothing about it that feels like it's too loose.
Mm-hmm.
It still created a really nice cohesive fabric, but with a lot of drape and a lot of air to it. So it made me very happy.
You know what's crazy? And then I want to share a question that Marley has with you.
Yes.
The crazy thing about this yarn is before we dye it, it is much finer. And then when we dye it and we rinse it and it dries, it becomes more plump. And then when you knit with it, it further blooms. So it's just a really cool yarn.
And very versatile. It's a gauge shifter. So
I love it. Yeah, it's great. So Marley's question is, and I'm going to actually share this with everybody so you guys can see it.
Yeah.
So I'm having challenges learning to knit socks. Can you tell me the best yarn to use? And she says number 3.
Is that number 3 needle size or is that number 3 as in lightweight yarn?
So yeah, tell us which one that is, Marley. For a beginner, and will you have classes in the future? I want to take that part of it while she's going to let us know. And I also want to address the top down versus toe up. So Marley, we will have classes in socks in the future. Before the pandemic hit, of course, we had tons of classes. The great news is this wrap, and this does tie in with the socks, but this wrap is going to be an online class that Sandy's going to teach. And that's going to give us a chance to really begin to share things through online classes because we are not at the point of having people in groups in the shop yet. So I would anticipate that we probably will have sock classes online. So watch for that. Now, as to the easier to learn top down or toe up, and Sandy, I know you're going to have a thought about this as well. My personal opinion, I've knit them both ways, and I will tell you, I knit socks. I am not a sock knitter. In other words, that is not my go-to project. Mm-hmm. But I do think it's easier top down. And here's the reason. When you cast on to do toe up, first of all, you're working with a very small number of stitches on a very small needle, and you're using it's Jenny's Magic. What's the something magic cast on?
There are a couple of ways you can cast on for a toe-up sock. They're all fiddly.
That's Sandy's got it right. It's very fiddly. So I would recommend personally that you begin with top down, and then once you've gotten comfortable with that, then try the toe up. It's not that it's hard. It's, as Sandy said, fiddly. And Marley
The
said,
only really good reason, in my opinion, for doing your socks from the toe up is if you are concerned about running out of yarn. Because
yeah,
the foot, you've only got so much wiggle room in the length of the foot.
right,
The length of the leg, you can go tall, you can go short, and it's still going to be a wearable sock.
yeah,
So if you're concerned about running out of yarn, you start from the toe, you go until you run out. That makes sense. I like working top down because I think that it's easier to establish the knitting on a larger number of stitches going in the round. And I don't mind having contrasting toes. I wear a size 11 shoe, so running out of yarn is always a concern for me.
yeah.
But it doesn't bother me to have toes of different colors. So if I run out of yarn, it's no big deal. I have leftovers from another project.
Yeah, and see, I love contrasting toes. I love fun and funky stuff anyway. So, Marley, we will have, I'm sure, sock classes in the not too distant future. So just watch for those. You'll see it on Instagram and on our website. But hopefully that was all helpful to you. And in terms of the yarn weight, I hadn't heard back from you on that, but 2 is generally a number 2 yarn weight is commonly used for socks. There's a lot more we could go into, like fiber content and twist and all of those things, but the short answer is 2 is commonly used. You can use any weight of yarn. It's a question of how you intend to use the socks. So if they're super thick, you might have a harder time wearing them in certain shoes. I hope that makes sense. Does that kind of cover it?
That is fair. But if you're just starting out, what I would say is in the sock class that we do, the magic number class, you can use any yarn and the pattern allows you to accommodate that. If you are using a sock pattern that you've found, you've purchased, or that's in a book or some how-to, you're going to want to use a yarn that allows you to get the gauge in the pattern, because you don't want to go all through this work and end up with a sock that doesn't fit.
Yeah, that's it.
And gauge is an issue.
Oh, and I want to add this to the broadcast too. So Ed said the cuff on top down is also more stretchy without being saggy. Nobody likes a saggy cuff. Well, that's not true. In the 80s with the big Avia tennis shoes.
Leg warmers.
Yeah. So wait a minute. There is 80s fashion to consider. But yeah, Ed, I'm totally with you. I'm no longer in the 80s. So very cool. Okay. So moving on, I do want to share some yarn color combinations for the shawl.
Yes.
Yay. Sandy and I were talking about this before the show. And, the deal here is, and we say this to people in the shop all the time, although what you see something knit in, it's perfectly fine to knit it in that color combination. You can also have fun. I did sell the yarn in this combination this week, Sandy. So people really like it. But here are some other ideas. And keep in mind too, some of these will really be exciting for some of you, and they will not be exciting for others will not be exciting for you. So this is icing on the cake, and this one is Raven Wing.
I love icing on the cake. That is such a beautiful color. And what would be interesting about that combination is I would use the icing on the cake where the purple is in the sample. So you'd be reversing the light dark value.
Yeah.
If you did that combination, which would be very cool.
Because this has a lot going on. This is actually really fun to dye, in case you guys are wondering. That colorway is
it looks like when I ice a cake and the crumbs get in the icing.
That's exactly what I thought of when I did it. I thought, oh, that's when I cannot ice a cake beautifully. I digress. That's a whole thing. I think this combination is really pretty. This is a new color for us. It's called Mountain Stream.
That's beautiful.
I just think this would, and I would do the same thing. So I would make this the purple, and then, you know,
And is the dark on that one the Raven Wing as well?
yeah. And your sister just said she was looking for something to pair with Raven Wing. Yeah, any speckle with Raven Wing in this would be great, I think.
That mountain stream with the Raven Wing would be very good for Jennifer's whole tiki vibe.
Oh, that's a great idea. If you guys don't know Jennifer Essex, she's commented. She is Sandy's sister, and she is
Yes.
a tiki bar, and what do you call they're tiki glasses, right? Aren't they called tiki?
They're called tiki mugs, and she's a collector of such.
She has a killer collection. It's amazing.
Yes.
Okay, so this combo is for my pink,
Love, love, love.
you know who you are. Pink petunia, pewter rose. So fun.
Gorgeous.
I'll give you just a few more. I'm going to give you this. So I almost completely sold out of this. I just dyed this new colorway on Tuesday. It's called Art Festival. And you can see why. It's just fun.
It's gorgeous.
And this is a batch of sea glass that didn't come out as varied, just the way the dye swirled around. But I think those together would be killer.
So pretty.
I think that's pretty. And then I'll leave you with three more combos. This is for if you like a lot of color, but you like what I call more adult combinations.
It's a very sophisticated combination.
Thank you. Sophisticated.
Yes.
So that one. And then
what's the name on that red?
That's Smooches, but it was a smooch batch that came out a little bit lighter. So actually the question on this one would be, I think I would use this for the stockinette.
Okay.
I don't know, but this one's super varied, so.
Could go either way.
And for our fall color lovers, I will show this because I think that's really luscious.
That is beautiful.
There's a term you like to use with color. Luscious. And last, Sandy's favorite.
That sunflower yellow I'm not a yellow person. I don't have a lot of yellow in my closet. That sunflower yellow is such a good, buttery, happy color.
It's subtle. It's not a kick you in the teeth. It's really subtle.
There's no highlighter about it. That's a kick you in the teeth.
This is for Jennifer. There you go. That's just for you, Jennifer. Okay, so that's our fun with hand-dyed Diva yarn colors segment.
Yay!
So yesterday, Sandy and I were talking about the show, and I came across, and it actually, oh, Kathy, good morning.
Hey, Kathy.
I actually came across a site about, it was about effects created through milling in yarn. But Sandy found that they were, what did you tell me? They were commercial yarns or?
Yeah, it was interesting because it was actually a very technical, scientific, it looked like a site put together by some textile school in India or Bangladesh or somewhere in that area about technical effects you can get in the yarn manufacturing process. But when the word thermoplastic comes up a lot, what that tells you is that they're not working with natural fibers.
No, but the textures of the yarn, I've seen those textures in lots of different fiber variations.
Yes.
So
yes.
Very, very cool. And so that led us to a conversation about sort of the evolution of yarns and then fashion styles in knitting. Full disclosure, Sandy totally created an addict in me to making the cut, which is a fashion show. And what was the other one you told me about?
Oh, Stitches in Time, or A Stitch in Time. Both of these are on Netflix.
Bingeable, you guys. And just a real quick side note, Marley asked how many skeins for this. It's 2 skeins of the main color in sport weight and 1 skein of the contrast. And you can get the pattern on Ravelry. We are going to have this as a knit along, but if you aren't interested or able to do the knit along, then you can get the pattern from Sandy on Ravelry. And give us a shout if you need color help. So I want to share some of the pictures um, that you pulled. So tell me where
Yeah.
you'd like for me to begin.
Let's start going back in time.
Okay.
When Lady Anne introduced this topic to me, she said, because you've been in this business a long
Well,
time.
now wait a minute. So the truth, here's the truth. The truth is, Sandy is more experienced than the vast majority of people in the industry, and there are people who've been in the fiber industry for a long time. However, Sandy's depth of knowledge is, I think, the penultimate. There's almost nobody in the industry who has done more, been in more facets, and also has more depth of knowledge in so many of those facets. So that's what I meant, Sandy.
Thank you. I'll take that. So I started knitting, for those of you who don't know, back in the late 70s. And so the thing to remember when you're talking about yarn or knitting pattern styles is that it is fashion. And things come into fashion, things go out of fashion, which makes it challenging as a yarn store owner,
Right.
because by the time you actually get the hot yarn, it's no longer in, and then you're stuck with the inventory. But it is definitely a fashion business. So back when I started knitting, the fashion was for less natural fibers, more synthetics, and a lot of fuzzy things. So if you were working in natural fibers, you were working with mohairs that were brushed or boucle. And if you're working in synthetics, you were working with yarns that were trying to emulate that look.
I'm gonna pause you for 1 second. I have to let Dolores in. You
Oh yes,
keep telling them.
yes. So the first thing that I ever knit was from a magazine. It was one of those grocery store magazines that you pick up at the check stand that's like Family Circle Christmas crafts or Women's Day crafts or things to make. For those of you who remember those days when such things existed, I don't see them very often anymore, but they had a knitted vest that was stripes of brown and beige and natural colors and different textures. And I had never knit before, but I decided I was going to make that vest. So I went and I found the exact yarns called for in the pattern and did all of the did all of the learning to knit from the instructions in the back of the magazine. Hi, Dolores. How are you?
Sorry. So Dolores is here today. Scoot yourself. We're gonna have to just hug up on each other. Dolores is hello. Dolores is going to model, and I'll grab the wrap for you in a minute.
Yay.
She's gonna model a wrap. So keep going, Sandy.
Okay. So if you would pull up the brushed yarn photo.
Does it say? Oh yeah, brushed mohair. Oh no, brushed yarn. There we go.
Or brushed mohair. Yeah.
Okay. Pretty. Yeah, it's really pretty. All right, let me get it bigger so you guys can see. There you go.
So I can't see it yet, but it'll come up soon in a minute.
Yeah, you're on.
So with brushed yarns, they begin usually as boucles with little loops, and we'll look at boucles in a minute, but then they're mechanically brushed after it's spun to raise up all the fibers and make a very hairy, fluffy looking fabric.
It's cool.
It is very cool. It's definitely a look. And it's something that was very popular back in the 70s. You occasionally see it coming back. And there's a sweater there's a brushed mohair sweater picture that I put in there for you. So if you can pull that up.
Sorry, you guys. I realized I'm violating.
I wasn't going to say anything, but I was shaming you in my head.
Yeah, no, wow, that was a moment of forgetfulness. So I apologize. So notice I'm, ooh. Yeah, so anyway.
Very good.
Yeah. All right, going on.
So there's a picture in the group that I sent you of a brushed mohair sweater.
Okay. There it is. Ooh.
So you see how you really get that texture of the yarn, where you get that kind of hairy, furry thing. And if you're working with this kind of yarn, as you're knitting, those long fibers actually get caught in the stitches. So to get that look, after the piece is finished, you take a dog brush and you go over it to
Oh,
really raise that nap.
that's a great idea. Oh my gosh.
So
I really love
that was
that.
very much the fashion when I started knitting. And there was the big yarn in that style was from Classic Elite, which is a yarn company that's now defunct, and it was called Legrand Mohair. So if anybody remembers Legrand Mohair, that's the kind of look that you got from that.
Very cool.
Now, boucle yarns. Let's look at boucles next.
I think I've got it here. Okay. Wow. Sandy loves boucle.
You know, I think boucle is beautiful, and I've worked with boucle quite a bit. Boucle is created when you take a 2-ply yarn, so you're spinning 2 strands together, but one strand is allowed to advance at a faster rate, so that as it is twisting together with its partner, it forms little loops and nubbles and bumps and crimps. And those can be, depending on the way it's spun, very regularly sized and regularly spaced, or pretty irregular. This is generally done with mohair, usually with some nylon for strength, and it gives you a very textured fabric. Now, the thing with both brushed and boucles is because there is so much air trapped between those fibers, it gives you a fabric that is very lightweight and very lofty, but very, very warm. The downside to working with boucles, particularly if it's got big loops, is that as you're knitting, you stick your needle through the loop instead of under the strand of yarn. And that's annoying.
Okay.
But do you have any more of that alpaca boucle that we had?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Oh, how convenient.
That was easy.
Yeah, that was easy. So it may not show up as well.
Yeah, you can see it's showing up very well.
Yeah.
This is actually a very fine boucle, and so the loops are small enough that you don't have that problem of the snagging in the loops as you knit. And it just creates a beautiful texture, and it's light and it's airy and it's gorgeous. I love that yarn.
Yeah, it's soft. It's a great hold along. Like a kid.
Yes.
And right now there seem to be quite a few people who are excited to do patterns that have that. I'm seeing a good bit of that. So yeah.
The downside to the brush and the boucle yarns, particularly if you're working with mohair, is that they have a tendency to shed. So you'll end up with mohair fibers up your nose and on your tongue, and it's just, yeah, they will shed. If you're wearing black pants, you'll notice them all over you when you're done knitting.
Okay.
The other thing is that they are very warm because you're trapping all of that air between these fluffy fibers. And so for a climate like ours in North Carolina, there might be 3 weeks out of the year when it's cold enough to actually wear it.
Do you like to use boucle?
I think that would be my first time.
I have not done much with it because anytime I've started, I've gotten irritated because you do get hung in the loops, you know.
The smaller loops are definitely the way to go. You don't want to go with the big loop boucles.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'd like to try though. Okay.
Yeah. So if we now move up in our time frame, let's look at a really recent innovation in yarns, which is what are called blow yarns.
Mm-hmm. Didn't you gave me a sample?
I gave you a photo.
Well,
I did give you a sample ball of one. Yeah.
Which is it's incredibly light. It is
yes.
Incredibly light.
Now, blow yarns are something that can't be produced really by hand spinners. It is a miracle of textile technology. You've got a photo in that deck of, there we go, the skein. The way blow yarns are made is there is essentially a circular knitting machine, and they knit a tube out of a very fine nylon fiber. Mm-hmm. And then while that tube is being knit, another part of the machine is blowing in fibers. Usually it's alpaca and merino. Mm-hmm. Sometimes if it's the lower price, and there's some acrylic in there as well. But usually alpaca and merino. And they're being blown into that tube. So what it does is it creates a yarn that is incredibly lightweight, very soft. you get a lot of the ends of those fibers kind of sticking out the sides of that meshy nylon tube. So it's a very fuzzy texture. The yarns are often brushed after spinning as well.
Right.
So you get that brings up more of that nap. You get a bulky yarn with maybe 150 yards in a 50-gram skein. So it's a lot of yardage for the weight of the yarn. And so it tends to be a very good value. We were looking at a sweater when Sandy Hoffman was in a week or so ago, where the pattern she was interested in was a bulky yarn.
Yeah.
And for something like that, if what you're after is a bulky sweater, but you don't want a heavy sweater, blow yarns are a great way to go because they give you that bulky look without a lot of heaviness, without a lot of weight.
God, I'd imagine though they are just super warm.
They are warm.
Yeah, that's wow.
They are warm.
The concept of a down jacket, you guys. And you
Yes.
said it's hard to hear me. Sorry, I'm gonna try to be as loud as I can, but
I could exit.
no, I like having you here.
I can hear you.
Dolores is awesome, by the way. Shout out to Dolores because stop, don't be you just take it. Just say thank you and take
Thank
it.
you, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Dolores is a USPS postal delivery person. She is a hero. And yeah.
Thank
Shout
you.
out. Oh, she'll come back up. Hold on. Look, she was so excited that it went off. Let me see if I can get it to come back on here.
Oh, did you lose me?
Well, no, not you. I lost, unfortunately, I lost our hero here. Let me try to get her back on. It'll come back on in a second, probably. There we go.
You got it facing that
Yeah,
way.
I know. It's because it went off and came back on.
Yay.
Look, this is a garage band, you guys. You just have to tolerate it. High-end studio here. But yeah, Dolores is awesome. And I guess I met you right after the shop opened.
Yeah, a few months.
It looks like I'm not looking at her, you guys, because the camera's reversed. I'm here. It looks, I think.
There she is.
There you go. I think I met you right after the store opened.
Oh, I'm supposed to face that way.
You have to. Welcome to the Cheers to You show.
Hey.
Yes. Dee is here. Oh, Sherry. Good morning.
Good morning,
I'm putting
Sherry.
that one up.
Uh-oh.
Happy anniversary, Miss Sherry.
Today's our wedding. Wait, today's our wedding anniversary, Dolores.
Congratulations. Well, I look at the back of your head.
Yes. The back of my head is grateful. So, but yeah, Dolores came to model something, which I'll show before we get done. So, all right. So we did the blown yarn. What else, Sandy?
I think that the other thing that's really been a trend recently is superwash everything. Superwash was actually only introduced to the market in the late 70s, and it didn't really hit hand knitting yarns in a big way until the 90s. So up until that point, if you wanted something that was machine washable, you were knitting with acrylic or you were knitting with cotton. If you wanted to knit with wool, you were having to hand wash it.
Yeah.
So superwash made a huge difference in the yarns that are available. But and I am not at all a yarn snob. I think all yarns have their place. I have worked with more than my share of synthetic yarns. And I certainly don't hold any grudge against superwash. But I think that we need to make our yarn choices consciously. Mm-hmm. And you need to know that superwash is a chemical process that's applied to yarn. In that it is a chlorine-based solution that strips away the scales on the outside of the fiber, and then it's coated with a polymer. So you're no longer touching the actual natural surface of the fibers against your skin. What you're touching is that polymer coating. And it's a process that uses a lot of water. So superwash is not particularly environmentally friendly. You may think that you're being really green and it's all wool. Perhaps not. If that's what your concern is, then you're better off working with a non-superwash yarn and just hand washing it on those rare occasions when it gets dirty.
You know what? I wanted to tell you, and I didn't know if you'd heard about this. I read about a new superwash process that's being used, I think, in Europe, but I'm not positive. and it is there's an organization that certifies environmentally
GOTS.
wrong way. There's an organization that certifies environmental processes. Yes,
Yeah.
GOTS. And there is a new superwash process, but it's not widely used yet. And the other thing to know is that I think a lot of superwash, I don't know all of it, but a lot of superwash process happens outside the United States. I think there's
Yes.
some that happens here, but not a ton.
I would say probably 90% of the superwash yarn that we see on the market,
Happens
that superwashing is done
outside.
offshore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
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 So, yeah.
So, the other thing with superwash yarn is because of the way it alters the structure of the fiber, you lose some of the natural water resistance of wool. And that's why when you wash a superwash sweater, it feels like it just kind of goes limp.
Yep.
It's because the core of that fiber is absorbing all of this water that in the absence of the superwash process never would have gotten there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the wool fiber itself would have kept it out. So you compromise on some of the natural wonderfulness of the wool when you choose to go with superwash. On the other hand, it is easy to take care of, it's soft against the skin, and it takes dye like a dream. It is easy to dye, and the colors come up really brilliant and really beautiful. So it's a very seductive thing, and nothing wrong with it. Just make informed decisions based on what's important to you.
Well, that's the soundbite of the day. Make informed decisions, people. That's it. Okay, we're done. No.
Yeah.
All right. So what's your next yarn on here?
What else did I put on there? I don't remember.
You have Alexis blown yarn.
Oh, Alexis. Alexis is actually, that is a shawl that I did for Taki Stacy Charles using one of their blow yarns.
That's pretty, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes.
It's really pretty.
What's fun about this is that because it is actually a chunky yarn, but I did it in a lace pattern. With the blow yarn, it didn't get heavy. It's soft and has kind of a fuzzy hand, but you still see the definition of the lace stitches. So I was really happy with that piece.
Yeah, that's really pretty. Do you do a lot of lace, Dolores?
Yes, I do.
Do you?
I'm getting the hang of this.
Yeah, look, this is television magic. You see, I say something to her, hey Dolores, what do you think about now, if you guys could actually see us.
We're both looking this way.
Yeah. Welcome to the magic of mirroring. Okay, so you also have cotton chenille, cotton slub, lumen, and that's it. Yeah.
We're getting up on 9:30. I don't want to push the time too much. So let's go to cotton slub.
Okay.
This is a yarn that was popular in the 2000s. You don't see it as much anymore, that I really love. It's a cotton that has been spun with sections, and they can vary in size, of loosely spun bits, so that you end up with those nubbins in the yarn, and it gives you a really nice texture.
That's that thick and thin idea. And actually, we have Katia Krita, which is a cotton blend that looks almost exactly like this, and it's on sale right now. So,
ooh, excellent. I'll have to come in and look at it.
Along, by the way. It's a carry-along.
Well, it doesn't have to be if you're willing to work at a small gauge. What I love about it is for a summer project.
Yeah.
Because that thick and thin tends to fill in without getting heavy, and it just gives you a really beautiful texture. If you'll pull up the lumen.
I will. Actually, Ed has a question, and I want to address Jennifer. I'm new to this software. I have not yet figured out how to zoom in on a picture. I can only get it so big. So I could not zoom in on that lace. I apologize. It's user issue more than anything. And then Ed's question is, does blow yarn have pilling issues?
It actually tends to pill less than a more traditionally spun yarn of the same size
Okay.
because the fibers are contained within that mesh cage. And so while yes, you have some that are pulling up to the surface to give it that fuzzy surface, you don't tend to get the pilling that you get with a spun yarn.
Right. Okay. All right. So last is Lumen, I believe. And you had cotton chenille as well. Let's pop that up because you just have to show it a chenille. Have you?
Okay.
Yes.
Do you like it?
No.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Why
No.
don't you? I'm
Look.
curious about why you don't like chenille.
I just don't like all of it, actually.
Let me. It's not your favorite. Let's see if I can get you back in there. It's the one thing with this camera on the phone is sometimes it does not stay connected. Okay, there we go. So it's not your favorite because it's just, is it a texture thing? Or
I
tell
think
me.
it's everything. Everything
Okay.
about it.
Okay.
I just don't like it.
Sandy.
So I have a granddaughter. I gave it to her. I said, "Here, life is too short not to work
And
with
it's
nice
thick,
yarn." Here.
right? Is it a thick? It's pretty thick. So
Not necessarily. What you tend to see on the market these days is actually a polyester chenille, not a cotton chenille.
oh, okay.
And those do tend to be very thick because they're marketed more toward home deck kind of projects because they're really soft. It's that polyester thing.
Those
Chenille is actually made when you take short fibers of, or short lengths of what are called the pile fibers, and you trap them between two strands of what's called the core fiber, and you twist that core, and it traps the pile fibers inside. So if you think of a pipe cleaner,
oh yeah,
where you've got the brushy fibers that are caught between the twisted wires, that's what chenille is.
that makes sense. Okay.
Just done with not wire and hopefully softer fibers. So you can find it in cotton. You often find it in rayon, and you can find it in polyester. It's very popular in polyester.
Very cool.
What I like about a cotton chenille is that it's very useful for things like you want to knit a baby towel or a baby blanket that's very washable, stays soft after you wash it, and has a nice nap to it. It's a really nice texture. And it's very absorbent because you have the ends of all those fibers as the surface of the fabric. So it's nice for baby things. It's also nice if you are somebody who likes to knit face cloths. I've never been a dishcloth or face cloth knitter myself, but I know there are people who do, and cotton chenille works really well for that. Rayon chenille is beautiful in that it has this very, very liquid, slinky drape to it. So it's used a lot by weavers for woven scarves because it does have that drape and it has a shimmer to it that's really gorgeous.
Cool. Okay. And the last one I have is Lumen.
Lumen is a piece that I designed several years back using a cotton slub yarn. And what Lumen is, it's actually shades for hanging pendant lamps.
That is so cool.
That is.
And the pattern has a set of 3, and they are done as cylinders. And the pattern actually includes instructions for taking floral wire from the craft store to create the frame, the hoop at the bottom and the top, and then using one of those just light bulb on a cord kits that you get at IKEA or World Market or one of those as the light source for it. What the slub yarn does is it creates that texture within it, and there's a close-up of the purple one in that photo.
Right here, yep. That's really cool.
So you can really see the texture that's created by the slub yarn.
I think you might be related to Martha Stewart.
If you knew me better, you would know that that's just so not true because perfectionism is not my jam.
I know that that was definitely facetious coming out of my mouth. So please no, but your craftiness is pretty awesome. Yeah, Deb Barton said, and this is true. This is very true. You're such a wealth of knowledge for all of us. You really are, Sandy.
Thank you.
It's awesome. It's just, you know a lot. That's all. Yeah.
I would say
Life is long and I pay attention.
Oh, wait, she knows a lot.
we'll get this when it's over.
If you're just joining us, it's Technical Saturday at Cheers to You. Well, before we sign off, a couple things I want to share.
Yeah.
So the wrap, where is it? Yes. Yes, that is me modeling this. Anyway, Mezzaluna, it's a knit-along class. Why is it called a knit-along class? Because you'll be making this project, and it's not going to be like eating spinach. The technique is built into the pattern, so as you knit along and you need help with things, Sandy can help you figure them out. There are great increases to work with. There is mosaic knitting. Don't know about your cast on and bind off. I don't remember what you said about that, but
Well, it's a little garter tab at the top.
That's a great.
Yeah. And it's a fun bind off.
Cool. So that is coming up. Beginner's Day is coming up as well on July 11th. I am going to do this entirely online. We already have had people signing up, but I am making the decision to have it only be online. So that's going to happen. Sherry will be here working in the shop. Dolores will stop by and cheer me on, right?
Yes,
Okay, cool.
definitely.
Yeah, thank you. As I look away from her. All right, I'm going to go grab something that you have to see, and I'm going to take Dolores off of that camera, and now you're going to be on that one. So let me put this away. So
That means I'm
stand
going to
up.
slide over
Yeah,
again.
stand up, and let's see you. There you go. So Dolores graciously is going to model. Let me think about how.
Ooh.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
pretty.
I want to put this, and actually, great top you chose, that purple. Okay, pivot toward me. Ooh, yeah, that's gorgeous. Okay, wow. Okay, face the camera.
Hello.
So you can
so good.
back up a little bit so they can see. Don't hit the, I don't want you to run into the thing. Okay, so she is wearing the Furious Flower wrap. This is it's basically a parallelogram that you're knitting. That is a slip stitch pattern in a honeycomb. It uses a bunch of different yarns. I do not specify the yarns in the pattern because there are a billion of them. Some of them are not even made anymore. The point of this is that you use what you have or get some new things and get creative with it. This pattern is going to benefit the Furious Flower Poetry Center, which is at my alma mater, James Madison. And the woman who started Furious Flower started it 25 years ago. They just had their anniversary.
Wow.
Dr. Joanne Gabin. She started the center to preserve and promote African-American poetry and poets. And this woman is incredible, and the center is incredible. So the profits from that pattern are going to benefit that center. And Dolores was gracious enough to model it. So, yep, good job. You got to do there you go, perfect. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll pop in and say goodbye. Bye. Thank you for joining us today, Sandy. Really appreciate it. And if you guys need anything, I'm still here. There I am. If you guys need anything, let us know. Just give us a shout. We're open 10 to 5 Wednesday through Saturday. We are starting our online classes. Yay! Now I can actually look at Dolores, and it works. And please take advantage when I get this wrap posted. Hopefully, Sandy, sometime this week, right? Will you have time to tech edit it this week?
Late this week, yes.
Cool. Okay, so by next weekend, watch for the wrap. Please buy the wrap to benefit the center. Please look them up at James Madison University, Furious Flower Poetry Center. And thank you to Dolores. And thank you, by the way, to all of the essential workers. Dolores, as I said earlier, is a USPS postal worker. She delivers your mail. Be nice to her. Don't park in front of the mailbox. Is that good?
That's good.
Yeah, okay. So love you guys, and we'll look forward to seeing you next weekend. And maybe I can twist Sandy's arm into co-hosting with me again.
You never know.
Yay! Thank you, Dolores.
You're welcome.
Thanks, guys, and we'll catch up with you
Bye.
next week. Take care. Bye.